Hello students, let's discuss about the poem The Trees written by Adrienne Rich. This poem was introduced in our syllabus last year and it is a very important poem as Adrienne Rich is considered to be a feminist. At some places in some write-up she is spoken of as feminist. Now who are the feminists? Feminists are those people, those who speak about females, that is, women empowerment, the rights of women. So, in this poem, in stanza 2, the struggle of the tree is compared with the struggle of women in our society. The central idea of the poem, The Trees, which is written by Adrienne Rich, is the concept of liberation from confinement. She talks about freedom. She doesn't talk about imprisonment. She wants that everyone and everybody must break free. The poem explores the transformation of trees as they break free from the limitations of an indoor space and return to their natural open environment. This imagery serves as a metaphor for the broader human experience of breaking away from constraints and reclaiming a state of freedom and authenticity. The poem underscored the natural desire for freedom and the rejuvenating power of returning to one's true and unrestrained self. Students, the theme of the poem. The poem, The Trees by Adrienne Rich, is a metaphor which compares the trees to women. The poet is a feminist, as I have already told you before, and highlights the desire of the women to be free and go out in the open. The trees want to free themselves from the floor of the house and go in the open forest. That's a place where they belong to. They are cramped in the house and their feelings can be felt and heard by the poet. This we are talking about in the third stanza. The poem uses the metaphor of trees moving out of an indoor space to symbolize the need for escape and renewal, reflecting a universal longing for personal and societal freedom. This is by the women. It suggests that true growth and healing come from being able to live freely and reconnect with one's true nature. Well, students, the tone of the poem is reflective, liberating, and urgent. Reflective because the speaker seems contemplative and observant, noticing the movement of the trees and their efforts to break free. The calmness in the description of the night and the act of writing letters suggest a thoughtful and introspective tone. How can we say it's liberating? As the poem progresses, the tone shifts to one of liberation and freedom. The breaking of the glass and the trees stumbling forward into the night convey a sense of breaking free from the confinement and moving towards a more open and natural state. This part of the poem feels almost triumphant as it celebrates the trees and metaphorically the people, or in other words, we can say women, freedom, okay, release from restriction. Urgent, the imagery of the trees actively working to escape and the breaking glass introduce a sense of urgency. The phrase listen in the last stanza, the glass is breaking, directly calls for attention, signaling an important moment of change and action. In short, the poem's tone captures the complexity of longing for freedom and the powerful moment of transition when that freedom is achieved. It balances calm reflection with the intensity of liberation, making the reader feel both the inner contemplation and the dynamic energy of breaking free. Well, before we start the poem, just let me give you a gist of the poem. In this poem, Adrienne Rich is talking about the movement of the trees from her house to the forest. The poem consists of four stanzas. In stanza 1, she is telling us about the things which will not take place in a forest where there are no trees. Let me read the poem for you. The trees inside are moving out into the forest that was empty all these days, where no bird could sit, no insect hide, no sun bury its feet in shadow. The forest that was empty all these nights will be full of trees by morning. Students, Adrienne is telling us that the trees are moving towards the forest from her house. The forest that was empty all these days will no longer be empty. That night, the trees are moving out. The next morning, the tree will be full of forest. Now, there are three things which will not happen in a treeless forest. What are those three things? The birds have no place to sit. Obviously, the birds, they all sit on the branches, right? They all perch on the stems and the branches of the trees. As there are no trees, no place for the birds to sit. Insects will have no place to hide, and shadow of the sun will not be formed, because you very well know it's the phenomena of science. If there is an obstruction on the path of the sun rays, then only we get shadow. Hence, in a treeless forest, what three things will not happen? This is an NCERT question also, students. So what three things will not happen? One is the birds will have no place to sit, insects will have no place to hide, and sun will not be able to cast its shadow. This phrase which you see in the poem, no sun bury its feet. Bury its feet means shadow of the sun will not be formed, or sun rays will not be able to cast a shadow or form a shadow. Here personification is used. Okay. So you see the explanation of the poem I have already given. The last paragraph. This is very unrealistic. The movement of the trees can show movement, but they cannot locate themselves from one place to another. We all know that, okay? So this is unrealistic, as trees are immovable, and hence we realize that the poem has a symbolic meaning. And how do we interpret this? We interpret that the trees refer to females who have healed themselves and are ready to move out of their homes into the world to fulfill their primary purpose of filling the world with mankind and humanity. The literary devices used in stanza 1 are personification, enjambment, anaphora, and imagery. Let's come to stanza 2. All nights the root work to disengage themselves from the cracks in the veranda floor. In this stanza, Adrienne Rich is basically talking about the struggle of various parts of the trees: the root, the stem, the branches, the twigs, the leaves, to free themselves from where they were growing and to pull the entire tree out of the poet's house and move towards the forest. Okay, so I repeat and I read once again the first three lines. All night, and they have been working all through the night, the roots work to disengage, to free themselves from the cracks in the veranda floor. And veranda floor of whose? The poet's. The leaves strain towards the glass. Strain is basically weary, tired, out of stress. The leaves are also struggling, working hard to free themselves towards the glass, small twigs stiff with exertion. Now you see, students, I repeat the phrase, small twigs stiff with exertion. What does it mean? The small branches of the trees, while they were also trying to free themselves from the place where they were growing so that they can also move from the poet's house to the forest, they get tired. That is what is being spoken of in the phrase stiff with exertion. Exertion is tiredness. Stiff is tiredness. Too much of tiredness. Okay. Long cramped boughs. Boughs are nothing but branches. Long crab means the crisscross manner, the way the branches grow. Shuffling under the roof. Shuffling means they are growing under the roof. Now, the movement of the tree is being compared with a newly discharged patient. Like the newly discharged patients walk feebly, less energetically, half dazed. towards the clinic door. Similarly, the tree, with all its part, roots, leaves, branches, twigs, they all are tired in the struggle to free themselves from the place they were growing. They are also moving from the poet's house towards the forest. In what form? In a less energetic form, in a half-based manner. The difficult words are already given to you. You can go through them. Well, students, I have already explained stanza 2. So the written form of the same is here. You can just go through it. The literary devices used in stanza 2 are enjambment, simile, and personification. Let me read stanza 3 for you. I sit inside, doors open to the veranda, writing long letters, in which I scarcely mention the departure of the forest from the house. The night is fresh, the whole moon shines, in a sky still open. The smell of leaves and lichen still reaches like a voice into the rooms. Students, the first letter I is Adrienne Rich, who is sitting inside her house. The doors are open to the veranda. And what is she doing? She is writing long letters. But while she is writing long letters, she is not mentioning the movement of the trees from her house to the forest. She further says that the night is very fresh and the whole moon shines brilliantly in the sky. She further says the smell of the leaves and lichen reaches her as clear as a voice. It's a simile used over here. Here I would like to mention, why is she not mentioning the departure of the trees from her house to the forest? Perhaps, students, according to me, there could be two reasons. The first one, she thinks the trees, as they are moving out from her house to the forest will be full of trees, and again the human beings will cut them off. Again, the forest will become empty, devoid of the trees. So, keeping in mind the safety of the trees, to protect the trees, she is not mentioning the movement or the departure of the trees in her letters. Second reason could be that she belongs to human race and human beings are responsible for deforestation. So somewhere or the other, I feel, being a human being, she must be feeling guilty that she is also a part of the race which has led to deforestation or the forest being without trees. This is just the written up explanation for what I have explained. The literary device used in stanza 3 are alliteration, enjambment, imagery, and even the smell of the lichen and simile is used because the smell of the lichen and leaves are compared with the voice. So here comes stanza 4. Let me read it out first. My head is full of whispers, which tomorrow will be silent. Listen, the glass is breaking. The trees are stumbling forward into the night. Winds rush to meet them. The moon is broken like a mirror. Its pieces flash now in the crown of the tallest oak. Students, Adrienne Rich in this stanza tells that her mind or her head is full of whispers. Whispers are just the voices or the murmurs which are made by the leaves or the trees, which tomorrow will be silent. Why will it be silent tomorrow? Because the trees must have or would have moved out from her house to the forest. Then she is addressing to the audience, to the readers, and she's telling, listen, the glass is breaking. There is a metaphorical meaning as well as symbolical meaning over here. The glass is breaking. One meaning is as the trees are moving, they are just breaking the glass of the windows or the doors break. The deeper meaning is the breaking of the protocols, the norms, the do's and don'ts of the society. The trees are stumbling forward. The trees, when they are moving from poet's house to the forest, they are stumbling. They are not able to walk steadily. Why so? Because they are very tired. Into the night. And look who is there to welcome them. The winds rush to meet them. The moon is broken like a mirror. If you remember, students, just in stanza 3, the moon was spoken as a what? As a full moon. Now you see, the moon is broken like a mirror. Why mirror? Because mirror is also silver in color and the moon is also silver. So it's compared with broken mirror. Its pieces flash now in the crown. Now why is it? Let me explain the previous line in detail first. It's broken or the moon appears like a broken pieces of mirror or a piece of mirror because the trees, the leaves, the twigs, the branches, they are obstructing the view of moon. The portion of the moon which is visible through the leaves and the branches appear as broken pieces of mirror. The portion of the moon is visible from the tallest tree, that is oak tree. Okay, the portion of the moon which is visible on the top of the oak tree appears like a crown. So this is the explanation for stanza 4. So in this slide, students, it's a written explanation of whatever I had given in the previous slide. The various literary devices used in the stanza are simile, personification, and imagery. So with this, we come to the end stanza or the last stanza of the poem. Here, I would take you back to second stanza, and I would like to mention over here how the struggle of the tree is compared with the struggle of the woman in our society. Just for reference, in case if the question comes, how is the struggle of the tree compared with the struggle of the woman? In that case, you just write down, like the tree is struggling with all its parts, roots, stems, leaves, branches, twigs, all to pull them out from the place where they are growing, to move to the place, a better world, okay, open world. Similarly, the woman or women in our society also have to struggle a lot. They have to fight against the norms of the society, the do's and don'ts of the society, the rules and regulations of the society to perform. They have to give the test. They have to struggle at each and every step to outshine, to show their talent. They have to, if they have to move out, they cannot move out solely. They have to move out along with their responsibilities. Just like the trees move out with all its parts, in a similar way, if a woman in a society or women in a society has to move or has to perform or has to become career oriented, she cannot leave her responsibilities back. She will have to move on with entire responsibilities and duties and has to struggle very hard to perform. That is how the struggle of a woman is compared with the struggle of a tree. Well, students, we had already discussed the central idea and the theme of the poem before we started with the poem. So let's now discuss few key aspects of the theme. Okay, this is just for better understanding and deeper understanding of the poem, the theme of the poem written by Adrienne Rich, The Trees, revolves around freedom and liberation, the natural versus the unnatural environment, and the inevitable desire for change and growth. So, these three things you should keep in mind. Okay. So, rest I have given in details freedom, how freedom and liberation is important, why it is very important for anyone, anybody to return back to their nature or natural habitat and surrounding. This is in continuation with the previous slide. The third point is inevitable change and growth. The tree's movement presents a natural, inevitable process of change and growth. The breaking of the glass and the moon shattering symbolize breaking old barriers and embracing new perspectives. This reflects the idea that growth and change are essential part of life, even if they are disruptive or difficult. The next point is human connection to nature. Although the poem speaks about trees, it also indirectly touches upon human experiences. The speaker's detached observation, the struggle of the trees, and the desire of freedom reflect the human condition. It implies that even human beings can perform the best in freedom. They also don't want to be imprisoned or in confinement. The last point is rebellion against confinement. The poem can also be interpreted as a metaphor for rebellion against societal norms or constraints. The tree's struggle to break free would symbolize a larger struggle for personal or social freedom, making a statement about the importance of resisting oppression and seeking a more authentic and fulfilling life. Overall, the tree uses the imagery of trees breaking free from confinement to explore broader themes of liberation, the necessity of being true to one's nature, and the importance of change and growth in life. So let's understand the deeper understanding or the deeper meaning of the poem The Trees, written by Adrienne Rich. In this poem, students, the symbolic and metaphorical elements are crucial for conveying deeper meaning about freedom, confinement, and natural world. Here are the key symbolic and metaphorical elements in the poem. Let's take up trees. The trees are the symbol of freedom and liberation. Explanation: the trees represent living beings that yearn for freedom by moving out of the indoor space into open forest. They symbolize the desire to escape confinement and return to a natural, unrestricted environment. What's the deeper meaning? The tree's action can be seen as a metaphor for people seeking liberation from societal, personal, or psychological constraint. They embody the universal need for autonomy and self expression. Then we come down to forest, which is a symbol of natural world and renewal. The empty forest symbolizes a place that has lost its vitality, where no birds could sit, no insect could hide, and no shadow could be formed. As the trees move into it, the forest becomes full and alive. Let's go for the deeper meaning. The forest represents the natural, ideal state where living beings belong. The movement of the trees into forest symbolize a return of authenticity, renewal, and re-establishment of balance and life. Next in row is glass, which is used as a metaphor for barriers and obstacles. Let's see the explanation. The glass through which the trees strain symbolize the barriers that separate them from the outside world. The breaking of the glass represents breaking free from these constraints or do's and don'ts. What's a deeper meaning? The glass can be seen as a metaphor for societal, emotional, and physical barriers that prevent individuals from achieving freedom. Its breaking signifies a powerful moment of liberation and the overcoming of obstacles. The roots and veranda are the symbols of confinement. Explanation: the roots working to free themselves from the veranda floor represents the effort required to break free from confinements. The veranda symbolizes a domestic, controlled environment that restricts growth. Deeper meaning: the struggle of roots can symbolize the internal struggle people face when trying to escape restrictive situations. It reflects the challenges involved in seeking freedom and the tenacity required to overcome them. If you reflect, if you go back few slides, you will see that when I was explaining about the struggle of women to perform in this world, I had told you that she has to fight against the do's and don'ts, the norms of the society, and then only she can flourish. Students, the moon is used as a symbol of change and reflection. It is described as broken like a mirror with its pieces reflected in the trees. This imagery suggests a shift of disruption in the natural world. The deeper meaning of this is the broken moon symbolizes a fractured reality, representing the disruption of old ways and the emergence of new perspective. It reflects the transformative power of liberation, where traditional views are shattered, leading to a new understanding of or identity. Whispering and breaking glass as metaphors for transition. Explanation: the whispers represent the quiet but persistent voices of change, while the breaking glass signifies a sudden and irreversible moment of transformation. The deeper meaning: these elements symbolize the transition from confinement to freedom. The whispers suggest an awareness or readiness for change, while the breaking glass indicates a decisive, powerful act of liberation. Now we come down to the comparison of newly discharged patient. Comparing the trees to patients leaving a clinic highlights the state of being dazed and uncertain, yet relieved and hopeful. Deeper meaning: this metaphor underscores the mixed emotion that comes with liberation, the joy of freedom, alongside the confusion of emerging a new state of being. It emphasizes that breaking free is both a healing and challenging process. Thus, concluding, students, Adrienne Rich uses these symbolic and metaphorical elements to convey complex ideas about freedom, change, and the natural desire to break free from confinement. The poem suggests that liberation is a fundamental aspect of life and that returning to one's natural state is necessary for growth and fulfillment. The imagery and the symbols enrich the poem, offering readers multiple layers of meaning to explore and reflect upon. So with this, we come down to the last slide of our presentation. Lots of materials has been taken from the net and various educational websites. Along with my own understanding of the poem, I have tried my level best to explain it in a very simple way and also give you the literal meaning as well as the deeper meaning involving various symbols and metaphorical elements used by Adrienne Rich in this poem. Thank you, students. God bless you all.